In 2022, Johnny Depp captured global attention in a way few celebrities ever have, and the magnitude of that interest was officially recognized when he was named the most searched person on Google for the entire year. This recognition wasn't merely the result of a new film or project, but a culmination of years of controversy, courtroom battles, career highs and lows, and an extraordinary display of public support and curiosity that followed his every move. That year marked a significant cultural moment, not only for Depp as an individual, but also for society's relationship with fame, justice, and narrative control. The attention he received wasn't just entertainment-driven, it was deeply intertwined with the public's fascination with truth, perception, and redemption in the digital age. Johnny Depp, already one of Hollywood's most enigmatic figures, found himself at the center of a firestorm that blended celebrity, legal drama, and the viral nature of 21st century media. At the heart of the surge in public interest was the defamation trial between Johnny Depp and his ex-wife Amber Heard. The case, broadcast live from a courtroom in Fairfax County, Virginia, was a spectacle unlike anything the public had seen since perhaps the O.J. Simpson trial. Over the course of several weeks, viewers around the world tuned in daily to watch the proceedings unfold, not only for the legal implications, but for the intensely personal and often painful revelations being laid bare. Millions of people weren't just watching for the outcome. They were forming opinions, dissecting testimonies, creating content, and rallying behind the figures they believed. Depp, in particular, garnered immense support online. On platforms like TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube, compilations of his courtroom moments went viral, some humorous, some heartbreaking, creating an unprecedented fusion of legal process and internet fandom. Depp's transformation in the public eye during the trial was remarkable. For years, his name had been tied to allegations, lawsuits, and a seemingly downward spiral. He had been dropped from major film franchises, most notably Fantastic Beasts and the Pirates of the Caribbean series, with studios distancing themselves from the controversy. For many, the trial served as a rare opportunity to hear Depp's side of the story in full detail. Through his testimony, Depp painted a picture of a man who felt deeply wronged, who had lost his career, his reputation, and his peace of mind due to accusations that he maintained were untrue. His calm demeanor, eloquence, and moments of vulnerability struck a chord with viewers, many of whom began to see him not as the caricature of a Hollywood bad boy, but as a human being devastated by public scrutiny. As the trial progressed, the divide between media portrayals and public perception became increasingly clear. While traditional media outlets offered measured or sometimes critical coverage, online platforms told a different story. Fans flooded social media with messages of support, artistic tributes, and emotional declarations. Hashtags like #dar Justice for Johnny Depp trended regularly, and online petitions calling for his reinstatement in major franchises collected millions of signatures. The courtroom became a stage, and Depp, willingly or not, was the protagonist in a narrative that resonated deeply with a disillusioned public. His ability to maintain composure under intense scrutiny became a symbol of resilience, and by the time the trial concluded, his image had undergone a transformation more dramatic than any film role he had ever played. The verdict, which awarded Depp $10 million in compensatory damages and $5 million in punitive damages, later reduced to comply with Virginia law, was seen by his supporters as a long overdue vindication. For Depp, it wasn't just about the money. It was a moral victory. In a statement released after the decision, he said, "The jury gave me my life back." That phrase echoed across news headlines and social media feeds, solidifying the trial's outcome as a pivotal moment in his career. But beyond the courtroom, the cultural impact was staggering. Depp's name was now more than a trending topic. It was a symbol of how narrative, reputation, and justice could intersect in the public square. Even before the trial, Depp had already been on a complex journey. After skyrocketing to fame in the late 1980s and early 1990s with films like Edward Scissorhands and What's Eating Gilbert Grape, he quickly became known for his preference for offbeat roles and collaborations with visionary directors. His work with Tim Burton became iconic, and his transformation into Captain Jack Sparrow for the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise launched him into stratospheric global fame. However, that fame came with a price. Depp's personal life, often turbulent, was never far from the headlines. Relationships, legal disputes, and financial troubles plagued him even at the height of his success. By the time the allegations with Heard became public, his image was already under siege. But 2022 shifted the narrative in an unprecedented way. The public's search interest in Depp wasn't limited to trial coverage. People were revisiting his past work, discovering his music, exploring interviews, and expressing renewed admiration for his artistry. Streaming platforms reported spikes in viewership for his films, and his presence at music festivals and art exhibitions received increased attention. It was as though the world had suddenly remembered the depth of his contributions to culture, filtered through a lens of empathy and reconsideration. The surge in Google searches was a reflection of this hunger, not just for scandal, but for context, understanding, and perhaps reconciliation. Another factor that contributed to Depp's status as the most searched person of 2022 was his enigmatic persona. Unlike many modern celebrities who share every detail of their lives on social media, Depp has always maintained a certain mystique. This reserved nature only fueled public curiosity. His absence from the mainstream made him all the more compelling, especially when he re-emerged with powerful statements and symbolic gestures. One particularly moving moment came when he appeared at a concert in the UK, just days after the trial verdict. Fans treated it like a victory parade. The crowd's energy was electric, and Depp, visibly emotional, responded with a quiet gratitude that spoke volumes. For many, it wasn't just a concert, it was closure. The phenomenon of Depp's resurgence also posed questions about cancel culture, due process, and media ethics. His case reignited debates about whether public opinion should dictate a person's career, and whether people can or should come back from allegations that tarnish their name, especially in an era of rapid-fire judgment and online outrage. For critics of the media, Depp's experience became a cautionary tale about the dangers of trial by headline. For others, it was a complex situation where neither party emerged unscathed, and the focus should be on systemic change. But regardless of where one stood on the spectrum, the numbers didn't lie. Johnny Depp had captivated the world. Throughout 2022, as Depp continued to rebuild his professional life, he also made careful choices about the projects he engaged in. Rather than rushing back into Hollywood, he focused on work that felt personally meaningful. He directed and starred in smaller films, continued his musical collaborations, and remained active in visual arts. These pursuits weren't just a distraction. They were expressions of identity, reminders that beneath the headlines was an artist still driven by creativity and passion. It was this authenticity that helped maintain the public's interest. People weren't just fascinated by the drama, they were rooting for a comeback, not as an act of celebrity worship, but as a testament to the enduring human spirit. By the end of 2022, Johnny Depp had become more than a movie star. He was a symbol, a conversation starter, and in many ways, a mirror reflecting the values and contradictions of the times. His status as Google's most searched person wasn't just a numerical fact, it was a cultural milestone. It demonstrated the extent to which individuals can capture the global imagination, for better or worse, and how digital platforms amplify that fascination. Depp's journey throughout the year highlighted the power of storytelling, how the same set of facts can be perceived in drastically different ways depending on who's telling the story. For a man who built a career playing complex, misunderstood characters, it was perhaps fitting that his own life would come to embody the same themes. Moving into 2023, the effects of Depp's prominence in 2022 continued to ripple outward. His influence could be felt in how studios handled similar controversies, how fans rallied around their favorites, and how public opinion shaped entertainment decisions. But perhaps the most lasting impact was personal. For Johnny Depp, topping Google's list wasn't a goal. It was an outcome of enduring, surviving, and speaking when it mattered most. In a world quick to judge and slow to forgive, Depp's re-emergence served as a reminder that the truth, however elusive, still matters. And for one brief moment in internet history, it was clear that the world was listening.